Okay, nice to see every one of you and nice to hear from you. We've been getting a lot of feedbacks from the previous lectures or series that we've been having. We've basically been talking on the obligations of a designated non-financial business and profession as it affects you as an entity or even as a company. So we'll continue from where we stopped in the last series, where we talked about the how to implement the targeted financial sanctions on your customers, whether they're designated persons either as terrorists or terrorist financiers. But today's lecture is going to be another obligation, but here we'll be talking strictly on beneficial ownership information. We've talked about customer due diligence, and it would culminate from beneficial ownership would culminate from the customer due diligence obligation because it's intertwined, it's almost one and the same. But here, the law requires that you have what is called your beneficial ownership information. So we're going to be knowing who a beneficial owner is, and then we're going to be telling you on what you as an entity need to do. Okay, so we're going to try to define who a beneficial owner is. So if you're ready, I'm also ready to go. A beneficial owner or a person with significant control can be an individual, maybe a group of persons or one individual who is a natural person that has significant control over an organization, can either control the organization directly or indirectly, and has a 5%, at least 5% stake in the ownership of the company, or has significant voting rights, can hire and can fire. So it could be a group of individuals or one individual who is also known as the ultimate beneficial owner of that company, has at least a 5% stake. And when I'm saying 5% stake, I'm talking about our jurisdiction here in Nigeria, but across board, it could be someone who has at least 25% stake ownership of a company, has the voting rights, has significant control, either can hire or can fire, but it has to be a natural individual. That's a natural person, not a legal body or a legal corporation. Yes, so that's who a beneficial owner is. So if you understand that, then that means you want to check out the significant control or the individual that has at least 5% stake of your company or your organization. And as a reporting entity, you have the obligation to find out who the beneficial owner of a particular entity is, especially those that you're dealing with directly as your customer or your client. So as a designated non-financial business and profession, even as a financial institution, on the point or at the points of onboarding your clients or your customers, you have this obligation to try to uncover who the beneficial owner of a particular transaction or a company would be. For example, if you're a bank and a customer has come to open, say, a corporate account, you're expected to uncover who the beneficial owner of that account would be. This is a mandatory requirement that is in the law, for you to be able to do that. So if, for example, a third party comes on behalf of the person with significant control, what are you expected to do? You don't know that this third party is the actual beneficial owner of this transaction, but during your customer due diligence exercise, you are now able to uncover that this transaction or the main BO or beneficial owner is not this third party that comes. You're expected to first take the details of the third party and also try to uncover using all mechanisms, all information that you can gather via open source or through the CSC repository to be able to uncover who the person with significant control or beneficial owner is to be in that transaction or the opening of that bank account. So at the level of onboarding your customer and your clients, you're expected to uncover who the beneficial owner of a particular transaction is or would be. So the Corporate Affairs Commission is the custodian of a register known as the Beneficial Ownership Register. So just in case if you want to find out beneficial ownership information on any entity, you can go to the Corporate Affairs website on www.bor. The BOR is Beneficial Ownership Register.cac.gov.ng. So on that site, I'm going to be explaining what you'll be seeing on the site. So you would see persons with significant control and it has a search bar where you can put in the name of the company if you do know the name of the company, and then it has also a drop-down menu. The drop-down menu shows you where you can either type in the name, or if you have the registration number, you put in there, and then you click on the search bar, right? So what I'm going to do is I would type in a very popular name, especially here in Nigeria. This is the Dangote company, and so several Dangote companies would appear. So there's a Dangote Nigeria Limited, and that's the Dangote Nigeria Limited. It has 2 persons with significant control. So when you click and open, you would see one, Dangote Sani. That's one of the persons with significant control, or the beneficial owner. And then when you scroll downwards, you will see that this individual has a 10% ownership of the company. So let me just read what is written here. It says, does the person with significant control directly or indirectly hold at least 5% of the shares of the company? So if your answer is yes, you will see yes. For this one, the Dangote has about 10% shareholding for the company. And then the second Dangote is prominent Dangote that you know, the Dangote Aliko, who is also a person with significant control for this company and has a 15% ownership or interest in the company. And reading through, it says, does the PSC directly or indirectly hold at least 5% of the shares or interest in a company or limited liability partnership? So the answer here says yes, directly he owns. And what is the stake there? It's 15%, which is much more than the 5% that I mentioned, right? Okay, so when you scroll down, you will now see what you need to do as an entity or as an individual who is supposed to give out your beneficial ownership information. And what you're required to do is that you either download and put that information on your desktop, or better yet, just print it out and put in the file of this individual who is your client or your company or your customer, so that when the law enforcement officers come or you have to now file the report, this information that you already gathered can be sent across to the regulatory authorities. There are other subsidiaries of the Dangote group or conglomerate. We have the Dangote Farms, we have Dangote Industries, Dangote Chemical Company, Dangote Cement, Ginin Company, Packaging Limited, Oil and Gas, and so many others. Now there's this one, the Dangote Farms. We're going to see that it has 5 persons with significant control. So when you click on that, and then you would see that there's a variation in the ownership structure, or in the voting rights, or in the shares that the company or the person with significant control has. So for the first one that I just opened now, with Mohammed Sani by name, has a 50% ownership of this company. So that makes him fantastically a person with significant control. The next person also does have a 50% ownership of this company, right? So in terms of shares or interest in the company, this person also has a 50% interest. So when you are done with all of these individuals, you've known who the beneficial owners are for this company, meaning that they are persons with significant control. They have the powers to make decisions on behalf of the company, even if their names are not particularly on the document of the company. However, they can be persons with significant control or beneficial owners, because of the percentage of share allotment or voting rights, that they have. So for all of this that we just checked out, they have 50% stake in ownership of this company. So if you're able to identify who the beneficial owners are, what you're expected to do is that you print out what information that you've gathered from the CAC register, and then you are expected as a designated non-financial business and professions to have your own in-house register where you are documenting all the information that you've gathered from the CAC repository, which is the database, right? Because the CAC is the custodian of beneficial ownership information, yes, especially when in regards to companies, because they have to give their details to the CAC for documentation, right? So you as an entity, you're expected to get out this information, keep in your own separate register, and then from time to time, within 7 days period, you're expected to now file this report to your regulatory authority. So if you're a DNBP, you file to the Special Control Unit Against Money Laundering. If you're a financial institution, you're expected to now file that information that you gather to the Central Bank of Nigeria. That's especially if you're a bank, right? And then for a capital market operator, you're expected to now file your report to the Security and Exchange Commission. And then for insurance company, you're filing to the insurance body, which is your regulatory authority, right? So for beneficial ownership, where you fail to file your beneficial ownership information report, there are also penalties that are meted to you as a reporting entity. And these penalties are still spelled out in the SCOMO's regulation, also in the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Act 2022. And I know that other regulatory bodies like the Central Bank of Nigeria, the SEC, Security and Exchange Commission, also have their own regulation or administrative sanctions guideline that they can met out sanctions to erring entities, right? And then for the Corporate Affairs Commission, it also has penalties. So you want to be very careful. You don't want these penalties to befall your entity because you are in there for business, not to start giving out monies to the government. Yeah, so are there people that are exempt from beneficial ownership classification? Yes, so the answer is yes. So if you're a sole proprietor, because you're a one-man business, automatically you're already the beneficial owner. So in that case, the law has given you that exemption, right? Because in that case now, there's no anonymity, attached to you being a sole proprietor. Also, if you are a particular, like certain types of trust, so some wealthy individuals may want to remain anonymous. They don't want their details or their names to appear on any legal document. So they might want to use the services of a trust or a trustee who might, be acting on their behalf and claim to be the legal owners of those properties or assets that they own. So this kind of individuals, if you are an entity, because the law has said you must uncover who the beneficial owner is, you're expected to find out through the customer due diligence mechanisms or procedures to be able to uncover who this beneficial owner is. Now, it is legal for a wealthy person to want to use a trust to act on their behalf, especially because for their safety, basically, so they could use trustees who might want to act as the legal owner of a particular asset or property or whatever it is, but you as a reporting entity, it's your obligation to try to find out who the beneficial owner is. And I've already shown you the guide. You might want to go to the CAC registry to be able to find out for a company, just in case if it was a company that came to do the transaction with your organization, you want to find out who is behind this company as the beneficial owner or the person with significant control, right? So maybe we're going to have a more elaborate discussion on beneficial ownership information when I'm able to gather more thoughts on this. And if you have questions, you can still post on the comment section. You can ask whatever questions that you have, and just in case if you're also still in doubts and you still do not understand most of the things that I've talked about, you can go to the Money Laundering Act in sections 10 and read just a little bit of what you will be seeing there. And it didn't capture so much, but there are some open source information that you can gather, regarding beneficial ownership information, or just, those who are persons with significant control. So like I mentioned to you, in our jurisdiction, speaking particularly about Nigeria, the stake or the equity for a beneficial owner has been reduced to as low as 5%, but in other jurisdictions, it is from 25% upwards, right? So for us here, 5% upwards, any individual whose equity or shares or voting rights, is within that range is classified as a person with significant